fanboying out. It's like, there's a good boy in here. Oh, that's so good. And the zombies didn't get them. If you haven't watched Tuesday's episodes, you need to do that. You guys are probably most familiar with them from their voiceover work in Naruto, Ben 10, and then I have to mention, I didn't know that much about Monkey Kingdom Productions, and then I went from iTunes, which you can get tumbling down if you're over 18, by the way.
That's right, not for everyone.
So let me get started. I have a simple question, because you guys are in a similar situation to me. I'm a nerd. My wife is not. My wife is a marathon runner, so go figure that out. Because I eat her dinner. So we have a spirited discussion going because I want to buy a 3D printer to make my own action figures.
We do too.
Oh.
Who doesn't want a 3D printer?
Right? That's like living in the future. That's like better than flying. It's not better than flying cars, but it's almost as good as flying cars.
Maybe you could print a flying car from a 3D printer.
That would be
That's
awesome.
the next step.
I just want to do action figure mashups. So
Yeah.
Gene Simmons as Emperor Palpatine.
I like the way you think.
So anyway, what's the dynamic like being married, Tara, to a nerd, and what kind of discussions does that lead to?
He has a lot of information about things I don't know. That's what happens.
That is sort of the definition.
And also what happens is it rubs off on me. So every once in a while we'll do something and I'm like, yeah, well that's like Iron Man, and Yuri's like, you get nerd points, you get nerd points. So I'll actually get
I love it
something.
when she surprises me with stuff like that. You're paying attention.
I'm like, he's got a Green Lantern shirt on. Check.
Right?
Because you do, right? It's Green Lantern.
Yeah, he's got it, like,
See, I
nailed
sometimes
it.
get them.
Nailed it. Yeah, I have an office where I keep all of my sort of stuff. I'm respectful about the rest of the house because I have a lot of action figures and other sundry toys and books and DVDs.
The truth is he just likes to be surrounded by them in his office. It's not that he's not allowed to have them in the rest of the house. They just make their way into his office.
They inspire me that way. So yeah, we find a good balance because I come from that experience and she doesn't come from that experience, but we found a way to coexist.
My stand-up Boba Fett was forced into the office, so I know exactly what you mean.
I have a stand-up as well.
Okay, so let's talk about one of the projects you're in post-production on that actually should interest everybody here, con artists.
Yay!
I'm actually curious, how much of that's based on your own life experiences? Because it's insane out there watching you guys try to get through a crowd.
Con Artist is a movie that we shot over the course of a year. It's documentary style, but there's some mockumentary. There's a mockumentary element to it as well because there's some stuff we just sort of played up, and some stuff that is semi-scripted. It came about because a friend of ours who is a documentary director said, it's a sort of a funny situation you guys are in as voice actors going to conventions, and because he had seen the experience of you go into the convention, like you go to the convention and you guys are famous, and then as soon as you walk out of the convention hall, you're nobody because you're not, Tom Cruise or whatever. Like people don't recognize you, so people don't care, and you're like you can't like we can't get in line at a club and go, oh, here, let's just go to the front. By the way, Sasuke Tamari. Like the real world, the outside world doesn't care about that. And so we thought it was a really funny idea, and we've always thought, Mandalorian in the house, outstanding. Outstanding.
Yeah, I would have just said, awesome outfit, people.
See, there you go. That's how we work together. It's sort of this idea of fame in a bubble. And he said it'd make a great documentary, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like fun. And then he texted us back a few minutes later and said, it'll be called Con Artists. And we went,
done.
We got to do it now. So over the course of a year, we went to a bunch of different cons and we shot, con footage.
We even shot at Phoenix Comicon.
That's right.
In 2010. If you were here, you might be in the movie.
And we apologize for it taking so long. But it's almost totally done, and we look to having it out this summer. It is about the con experience and voice actors going to cons and the experiences that they get into. We play very heightened versions of ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, we're playing ourselves because I'm Tara Platt and he's Yuri Lowenthal, but we're not really playing ourselves because it wouldn't be nearly as much fun in the movie if we weren't ridiculous.
So we play it up a little bit, and we look forward to you guys seeing it. So yeah. We had hoped that we would be able to show it at Phoenix Comicon, because this is our first time since we did it, that we've been back. But it wasn't quite ready yet.
And if any of you guys are on Twitter, or any of you guys on Twitter, yes? No?
Maybe.
Yeah,
You
maybe.
may have heard of the
I don't
internet.
know. You can always
there's this thing
follow
called Twitter.
You can follow us because we're always doing updates about things like that. And there's also, we have a Twitter handle for con artists. And if people have photographs of yourself with us at conventions or yourself with other people at conventions, and you start tweeting it to us personally or at con artists, I think at con artists movie. At Con Artists Movie, we'll retweet it so that people can see your photos.
Because we have a lot of cosplayers in the movie.
Yeah, it's very, very silly and fun.
And
but we hope you all
say,
like it, and please tell us your thoughts and share it with your friends and stuff like that when it comes out.
Yeah, we're
this
excited.
summer.
And then I want to talk about your book real quick, since you're talking about voice work.
Sure.
Voiceover Voice Actor came out roughly 3 years ago, so it's probably between the editing process and whatnot, probably about 4 years old. What's changed now? 4 years is a long time in the voiceover world. What kind of stuff has changed since you originally wrote that?
That's a great question. A lot has changed, but a lot has stayed the same. Technologically speaking, now many of our sessions are not done on paper script. Like, you used to show up and there would be like a binder with all this paper in it, and you'd be flipping through, finding your lines, and now almost everything is done on iPad, and oftentimes it's being controlled by the director in the booth, controlling what you're reading on an iPad to read all of your dialogue and things like that, which is great because you're saving trees, but it's also hard on your eyes. So I know a lot of voice actors now that have gotten to get glasses, which is sad, I guess.
No, it's sophisticated.
Oh, I mean, it's called we're getting old. Oh.
It's totally nerdy and hot.
It's nerdy and hot. But then also, there's been a huge increase in the number of jobs for motion capture and performance capture for video games. And now they're starting to blur the lines a little bit between being a voice actor and doing motion capture, because they used to sort of be a little different. Like, there'd be a lot of stunt guys that would do the motion capture, and the voice actors would come in and voice the role, but they wouldn't be the same. And now, more often than not, they try to cast the same actor. So we are now doing more and more motion capture in addition to voiceover, and you will sometimes do the motion capture on the stage with all those little glow-in-the-dark balls all over you, which is awesome. And
There's no way to look cool
There's
with
no
that
way to look
outfit.
cool with that. You look like a scuba diver with glow-in-the-dark balls all over you. That's what you look like. And so you do all the work there, but you're also mic'd. And so a lot of times they use the performance from the motion capture stage, which is different than actually being in a booth with your dialogue, because you've actually got it memorized like you would if you were in a play or in a movie. And so things have shifted a little bit. But the work itself is still very much the same. You show up for a group report, you have your scripts, you have the other actors, you're recording together, you're doing a dubbed animation session, you have your dialogue, you have the beeps, you have the time code. I mean, a lot of that is still all the same.
And as far as the business is concerned, we're seeing a shift, and I can't tell quite yet, but I suspect it's certainly only at the beginning of in video games, where a lot more like tablet-type video games, iOS games and so on, are being created that are going to be a lot cheaper than $60 to buy, and people get as much fun out of as they would a much. Like, I found that sometimes I don't have the focus to play, all the way through, the last, Persona game or whatever, which could take, 1,000 million hours.
1,000 million.
1,000 million hours.
He's really good at math, also.
Right. I leave that to Tara. That's part of our agreement. But I'll jump on Temple Run or whatever on my phone. I've seen a lot of people doing that. Sort of hop on, hop off games as opposed to fully immersive games. And I think there will be a gradual shift toward probably making more of those type of games, and maybe a little less of these massive role-playing games, or these super immersive games that take 100 hours or more to complete. Which, as much as I love those, that's sort of where the market's going. Which could translate to less voiceover work, because a lot of those games don't necessarily require the same amount. Or not. I don't know. Maybe there'll just be more, tablet games we'll be working on. We'll see how it goes. Those are sort of the trends that we've noticed.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and one more question before I go to the crowd. Let's talk about shelf life.
Let's talk about shelf life.
Does anyone here watch Shelf Life?
Yeah. Could I? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, hands.
Thank you.
You know what I love about that is that I'm so jealous that the rest of you get to now start. There are 43 episodes online, so you've got You got your whole life ahead.
4 seasons.
4 seasons. The season finale of season 4 is
Goes
going
up
to be
Tuesday.
goes up Tuesday. So at that point you'll have 43 episodes to go through, plus all the behind the scenes stuff and the Facebook page and our Tumblr and all that. It's a show. It's about 4 action figures on a young boy's shelf. It's sort of like it's like not safe for work Toy Story.
And not safe for small children.
Right.
Sorry.
You might want to wait until a certain age to start watching it. But it's one of the things that we put together because when we're a lot of times as actors we're working on other people's projects. We're hired to work on somebody else's project, and every now and then we feel very passionate about making projects of our own, where we have more of the control, and to make the kind of projects that we would want to watch and play the roles that we would want to play. So that's when we created this show, Shelf Life, and it's fun, man. It takes a lot of work to put a show like this together, but it is so much fun. And Travis Willingham, who you may know from a bunch of other shows and video games, is on the show, and he is a comic genius.
With an eraser.
With it,
Yep.
oh yeah,
With his eraser.
His eraser, and other things, and it's just a fun show. We've had a blast doing it, and you can see, the show starts in one place when we were in the first season because we were sort of figuring it out. We only had a certain amount of money to, so we were trying to keep it on the cheap, and then with each season you see the show getting more and more expansive and more fun, and now we had raised some money on Indiegogo last year to shoot the 4th season and really up-level the whole show. And you can really tell. We had some great guest stars this season, and we finally gotten the characters off the shelf.
And there's a whole season arc, which is fun, because when we first started, each episode was sort of a standalone episode. I mean, you learn about the characters by watching it, so you're getting more information, but you can sort of watch an episode and you get everything that you need. But now in season 4, we have full arcs that are happening for all the characters, and so you want to watch the other episodes so that you know what's happening and you get the in-jokes, and it's becoming fun. Did you actually have a question about it, though?
I was just, I love the show, so I was just giving you time to talk about it.
Oh, awesome.
Especially when I saw the number of hands that went up. I was like, oh, you guys need to get an introduction.
Yeah, it's easy to find. The YouTube channel for it is Shelf Life the Series. If you go to YouTube and search that. Or you can go to shelflifeseries.com. That's the website for Shelf Life Series on Facebook. It's easy to find, and like I said, I'm jealous you get to start, and you have that all ahead of you.
It's fun.
There is a nun ninja in it.
A nunja?
Nunja.
A nunja, uber cool.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to throw up one of the audience for questions, because I'm sure you have a slew of questions.
That's how we usually like to run these. We want to make sure that you guys get to find out the things that you want to know with the limited time we have up here. So
Right here down the front.
With each and every new installment or remake of a Persona game, how exactly does recording for that go about? Like, do you actually re-record old lines, or do you just use old ones and only come in for new ones for new characters and whatnot?
I believe that what we do is that they have us record per game individually. So even if we've already set a line that was used in a previous game, they would have us re-record that line when we're doing our new recording session for the new game. Because oftentimes that'll be 8 months apart or 2 years apart. I mean, you're not recording it back to back. And so it just makes more sense for them while you're in the booth, while you're recording for that session, just to record everything that they know that character needs to say. So you sort of start from scratch every game and you record.
So there was a lot of filling in. I think for Golden, they just added scenes that weren't in there before.
Yeah.
And so that was all new stuff. Obviously, where it came in to a really interesting place is when we started doing before the animation. There were the people who wrote those scripts were different people than the people who had adapted the scripts for the game originally. And so I mean, one of my favorite lines is Yosuke's, "Oh, critical hit to the Nads!" That wasn't in the script. And we got to that point where he wipes out on the bicycle, and it wasn't there. And I felt like I had to step up and say, "Excuse me, in the game, this is what he said, and this other line sucks." No, I didn't put it that way. But I said, I think we owe it to the fans to try to hit some of those points that they loved from the game in the animation, and they were totally open to hearing that. So we didn't do that with every line because that would have slowed things down too much. But there were a couple of key moments I think where each of the actors who, if they were proud of a certain moment, stepped up and said, "In the game we did it like this. Can we try it like that?" So it was interesting going from the game to the animation and having to retell a lot of those stories.
And the second part to that is, and I really want to get this quick before my camera dies again, and I think this is going to be funny because it's Arizona. Can you say my favorite line from Yosuke from the animation, "Holy hard nipples, it's cold"?
Oh yeah, because it's Arizona. That's
yeah, I know.
Perfect.
And that's just
Holy
my...
hard nipples, it's cold!
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And there was one over here.
There
Right
was.
here. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you a question you may or may not get a lot. How's your day?
Awesome. I don't know that we've ever gotten that question before.
I have
I like
that
that
question on
question.
the panel. I'm having a good day. Are you having a good day?
I'm having a fun day, thank
That's
you.
good.
Thanks
Thank
to
you for
Phoenix
asking.
Comicon. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's one of the best run cons that we've ever been to anywhere, which is why we'll always be happy to come back. It's exhausting because it's so much fun. Oh, sorry, should I left an applause break in there? It gets exhausting, when you're on the floor all day and you're interacting with a lot of people, and so usually about this time of the day I start to get tired, and the only thing that keeps me awake is you guys. So thank you for turning out for this panel. Thanks to the splicers in the audience. That's kind of awesome. Sorry, I will generally call out nerdy things that I like. If you've like, is that Trogdor the Burninator on your shirt? Is he burninating the countryside? Okay.
And over here in yellow.
For Yuri, I wanted to know how did you feel about voicing Cecil in like Dissidia and the remake of Final Fantasy IV? Because I know you had done like noble characters before when you did like the Prince or you did like Luke, and I just wanted to know how you felt about doing Cecil, who pretty much embodies chivalry.
Yeah, he's getting to do Cecil for Final Fantasy IV was surprising to me because the game had been out for so long, but hadn't had a voice before. So that's always tough because people have created his voice in their heads, when they play, and it's hard to step into that and get it right. But I was honored to get to go and do that because up until that point, I forget if I recorded Rex for Final Fantasy. Was that 11 or 12?
12.
12, yeah. I forget if I did that before or after Cecil, but I hadn't really gotten to be a part of the Final Fantasy family yet. So that was really, I was honored that they would let me go back to such a venerated Final Fantasy title and let me do that. You're right. In some ways, it came easy to me because, as Tara will tell you, I kind of embody that in life, and so it comes through in the characters that I play, in one form or another. And so it was fun. I was really happy to get to do that, and then to come back, for Dissidia and get to play the same role again and again.
And there was one in the back with the hand up. Yeah, you.
Seeing your characters how they start, and then as the plot continues on and such, did any of your character change?
For any job in particular, or all of them?
The latter.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
over time,
yeah.
when our characters change.
I would say yes, because the more information you have about a character, the more you know the character, the more you've gotten to play the character, the more invested you get in the character. And so, when you realize that the character is making choices that you agree with, that's exciting. And when you realize the character is making choices you don't agree with, you sort of have to look into that and explore that and recognize how you are different from your character, and also celebrate the wins for the character, and commiserate with the losses for the character. So I mean, it's great. Like Tamari, because she's aged over the whole arc of Naruto, and I've gotten to play her for a number of years. Oh my gosh, how long have we been doing that? 7 years?
Naruto? A long
Something
time.
like that.
It feels
And
like
so,
forever.
So you really get invested in the character and the storyline and what's happening. And then there's other characters, you go and you have one session for 2 hours and that's it. That's your only experience with that character. And so, of course, it's more difficult to get, like you can have fun, you can enjoy the character, but it's a lot more difficult to get super invested in something you've only spent 2 hours on, as opposed to something you've spent 7 years on. So, of course, getting to play it longer is
Yeah, it's always a treat to get to play a character in something that lasts that long, because you get to learn that character. You never really nail it on that first day. And so as you get to play it longer and longer, you find that character more and more. And hopefully you get some character development in the script as well. And it stays interesting and it stays fun. The splicers with their masks looking at me while I'm talking is weirding me out.
And in the white t-shirt?
This is for Yuri. In your role of Yosuke in the Persona series or 4, how is it working with the new Teddy and Chie actor? Because I know in Persona 4 they transitioned and changed the actor for Golden in the animation. How was it? Was it different or harder?
In some ways it wasn't different at all because, like I said, we record solo. So it's not like I'm getting to work with another actor. So because the writing stayed the same, because the characters stayed the same, I was just reacting off what I was reading in the script. So for me it was no change. But because Erin Fitzgerald, who plays Chie, and I are such good friends, I started imagining her saying the lines, and she is crazy and fun. And it actually, I think it made the relationship between those two characters possibly stronger. I'll leave that, guys. Leave that to you guys as to whether you felt that way. But it got a lot more fun. I felt, and that's nothing to say, to the actor who was doing it before. But it just, when you change things up like that, it creates a different dynamic. But we don't always get to work with the actors in the room, and so, on one hand, it was no change at all.
Well, that brings up an interesting question. What's it like to get your ass kicked by Samuel L. Jackson?
Oh yeah, that was, it's the only time probably that I'll ever get to fight Samuel Jackson. Was on Afro
Never
Samurai.
say that. It might be,
Oh, that's
you
true.
might have other opportunities.
That'll be my goal. My goal in the
Snakes
future
on the
will be.
submarine.
I was never
So
on the shelf.
Snakes on a shelf.
Snakes on a shelf.
We already have a snake on the shelf.
Absolutely.
Samurai Snake is one of the characters in our Shelf Life show. Yeah, the funny thing about getting my ass kicked by Samuel Jackson, which I love that I can say that, is that we went for several years on we did the first series, and then we did the game, and then we did sort of the follow-up movie, and I never met Sam once throughout that whole time. And so people would always ask me, what's it like working with Samuel Jackson? I'm like, I don't know. But I finally met him at the launch party for the game, and I felt like I have to go up to him and introduce myself. And I went up and I said, hey Sam, you've been kicking my ass for the last 5 years. I figured the least I could do is come and introduce myself. And he laughed, and he was a really, really nice guy. I was so happy that he was a nice guy because it could have gone a totally different way.
Then he would have actually kicked your ass.
Right. Well, that would have been kind of cool too.
In the back in the black, please.
Back in black.
When comparing recording sound via motion capture with being confined in the studio with maybe better acoustics, what do you both prefer? Acting out the character as you're delivering the lines, like a stage, like a movie, or would you rather be more in an audio booth with better acoustics for your voice? What do you prefer?
That's an interesting question. The question is acting, on a mocap stage,
Right.
where we're doing the voice, but it may not have the same, the good acoustics that a studio does, because it's a big, wide open space, versus acting, in a space that's meant for voice recording that's, perfect for that, but not getting to do all the movements.
That is a tough question.
Yeah. Which would we prefer, or?
I don't know, because
better?
I think my ultimate preference is actually on camera, where you get the costumes and the props and the other actors, and you're actually in that world. So you would think sort of second to that would be motion capture, because you're on a sound stage working with other actors, and you have sort of props, even though really it's that with some balls on it. It's not the actual prop. But it's interesting because there is something really fun about being in the booth, using your imagination, creating that whole world in your head, because sometimes when you're on the motion capture stage, even though you're having to react to the monster that's looming, you're really just looking at a blank wall, which
Or a
is,
stick with a
or
dot
a
on
stick
it.
with a dot on it, which is even weirder, that like you're following the stick because that's the monster. You're like, okay, I'm a crazy person right now. That's okay. So I don't know, because there's something really nice about being in the booth and being able to hear yourself and modulate your voice and create the performance that way. But there's also something really fun about being on those sound stages and like having other stuff around.
Yeah, because that's why we got into this, is because we want to, play like that. So getting to hold the props and put on the costumes and things like that is so fun. But but the technology is not quite there, where often the sound that they record on the mocap stage is still not as good as you would get in a studio, and we have to go pick it up again later anyway, for one reason or other, because you've made a sound that then obscures the sound you're trying to make with your voice because you're moving around. And in some ways, while it brings us closer to that natural performance, like what Tara was saying, with the costume and props and it's because when you're in that motion capture suit, you've got all the balls all over you, and you've got a big frame out in front of your face that has a camera
And a
to
light
here,
rig.
and a microphone sticking out over your head, like one of those deep sea, fish. And you've got a mic, you've got all these packs on your
Stretch
belt,
your legs and your back.
and you're covered in Velcro because that's how they attach the things to you. Certain things become more difficult. Liam O'Brien and I had a scene together on a shoot we were doing a while ago, where it's like a fight and we're wrestling around on the ground and fighting. Now, that's all well and good, but we were sticking to each other with the Velcro, and we were supposed to get in each other's face.
Because your rig is about this far out from your face.
Yeah.
So you're trying to have a fight where you're like attached to the person. And you're like, this is
kept
like
hitting the
weirdest
frame,
thing.
against each other, and it ends up being actually super awkward.
Super awkward.
So they're new challenges, new and exciting challenges.
Yeah.
And right there in the black, with the glasses, with the cape.
Oh, okay. I just got here, so I'm sure this question's been asked before. But which character would you say was like the most fun to voice? Like you were able to get into it more than others?
Most fun character to voice. Oh man, I don't know.
You love Superman, you know you
It's
do.
true. I got to play Superman on Legion of Superheroes, and I've grown up a big comic book nerd, and to get to play Superman is kind of like, do I retire now? That was, where do you go from there? And it was, because I would get tickled every time I would do it. I'd do it and then I'd be nerding out, in the corner right afterwards. So yeah. And then every now and then when you get to do a group record, because part of it is the fun playing the character, and part of it is the people you get to work with. Now, a lot of times we'll record solo and you don't really work with anybody but the director. But sometimes you'll get in a room with people you've, for example, in my case, nerded out over since before I got into this business, and now you're in the room working with them. You got to play it cool, like I haven't watched everything they've been in and been in love with them, since I was a kid. You got to pretend like you're not that guy for a second, but I always lose my cool eventually, and I got to go up to them and tell them exactly how much I loved, X thing that they did, or how this has, influenced me or whatever. So I love that. That's always fun for me.
And I guess for me, maybe, I don't know, there's something great about being able to play a character for so long. So I have a very close love for Tamari, just because I've gotten to play her for such a long time. So that's
She's a
fun.
bad chick.
She's one bad chick. In a very good way.
Well, totally.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Right here in the brown.
Alright, are there any new or otherwise undubbed roles that you guys would be interested in doing?
Are there any new or otherwise undubbed roles that we'd be interested
All
in
of
doing?
the ones they would hire us for.
We're not particularly picky. As an actor, you can't always afford to, pick and choose. And it's been hard for me to keep up with all the new shows that are coming out, too. So sometimes people will say, you should totally be on this show. A, maybe I haven't heard of the show because it's, I can't keep up with all the new shows. And B, it's not like we can just sort of go, oh, I'll get right on that, and call up, the person and go, you need to put me on that show.
But yeah, every time we audition for something, we get excited. We're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You rarely audition, you're like, this sucks. Do you know what I mean? You're like, oh, this is amazing, and you just hope you get cast on it. Or
I'd rather be back working at that bank I was working at before I started doing this. That never happens to me. I don't read a script and go, yeah, working at the bank would be better, or, temping, or working as a waiter again. That never happens.
Speaking of auditioning, being that you're husband and wife, have you ever gone for parts and one gets it, the other one doesn't? What's the dynamic like? Or do both of you just go like Governor Chris Christie, the 3 words, joint checking account?
well,
The answer's
yes,
both.
yes. Luckily, it's a joint checking account. That does happen all the time. Luckily we both get to audition a lot, and that means a lot of times there's overlap because we worked at a lot of the same studios, a lot of the same directors, a lot of the same production companies, and so they tend to bring us in, but we may not be the right sound or what they're looking for the particular show or the role, and so it can be very disheartening. I mean, you get sad in a way when you don't book those things that you think are really cool that you're hoping that you get booked on. And on one hand, you get to celebrate in the fact that your other half has, and you're like, that's awesome, I'm so happy for you, but then there's a part of you that's like, I'm so bummed right now. And so it's a matter of, that's happened to both of us, that one of us will have gotten on something and the other one didn't. And you just sort of have to be like, I'm really sorry, babe, but I'm really excited. And you go, okay, I'm really happy for you, I'm really, excited. And you sort of celebrate the win, and you also sort of commiserate the loss at the same time. So.
Yeah, well said.
Pikachu.
I choose you.
Tamari, are you and Shikamaru ever gonna date?
That is a good question. I think a lot of people would like for that to happen very much. I do not have any control over how it's going to go, but that would be
There's always fan fiction.
That would be
Did I say fan fiction? I meant slash fiction.
And in the blue, in the back.
How was your experience on tabletop?
Oh, so much fun.
Awesome question. How was our experience on Tabletop? Well, Will Wheaton does a show for the web for Geek and Sundry called Tabletop, in which he gets people that he knows to play board games with him, and it's awesome.
It was so much fun.
Because it's in part about whatever game we're playing that day, but mostly it's just about friends goofing off together and you getting to see that. So it was super fun.
Yeah, we played the episode of Castle Panic.
Yeah.
And then we also just did the live tabletop game.
Yeah, on National Tabletop Day.
We did Ticket to Ride.
Yeah.
I won. I was very proud of myself.
Yeah, you did. And then we got
And
to
I
play.
didn't mess up the table.
And I didn't. Right, I know. Oh, you didn't Ann Wheaton it.
No.
And we got to hang out with Colin Ferguson, which talk about those situations where I try not to nerd out too much, on the star of Eureka when he's sitting at the table playing board games with us. I think I managed myself pretty
Yeah,
well.
you did. You were very composed.
Until the camera was off, and then I freaked out a little bit.
You squealed like a little girl. It's okay.
In the black right there.
If you had to choose the life of one of your characters to live out, who would that be?
We can choose the life of one of our characters to live out.
Not Sasuke. That would just be too hard and too angry. I don't have enough anger in me.
Wonder Woman would be pretty awesome. She's Wonder Woman.
Right?
I would get a lasso in an airplane.
That's true. Ben 10, who wouldn't want to, have a watch that you could change into all sorts of, hundreds of aliens? Ben 10 would be pretty cool. Yeah, I'm going to go with Ben 10. Plus, he's, like 15. 16.
This one's for Yuri. I'm not sure if you can answer this, so I have two backup questions in case.
Okay, I'll do my best.
One of my favorite antagonists in Saints Row the Third was Matt Miller.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if you remember playing him too much. I've seen some cover art that looks similar to him for Saints Row the Fourth. Can you confirm whether or not that you are in that?
Can I confirm or deny that I am? I can confirm that I am in Saints Row 4. If you thought that they had gone way over the top for Saints Row the Third, you ain't seen nothing yet. I couldn't imagine that they could go any further than they had. And the beginning of this game destroys that, and then they take it even further. When you find out, you'll be like, wow, he was right. I forget if I can confirm who I'm playing in that, so I'm going to play it safe, because they hate it when we spoil things, and then we get fired.
I'm actually surprised you confirmed it.
No, I think it's safe to confirm that I am in Saints Row 4, but I can't tell you who I'm playing. And I know that's not a spoiler because I have been in all the other Saints Row games and I've played different characters in each one, so there you go.
Right here.
Yeah, from a technical aspect as an actor, when translation works, how much room for interpretation you had in between like all the lip flaps and what the director has down in the translation?
That's a good question. It's a technical question about acting and dubbing. How much room do we have for interpretation as far as the translation is concerned when we're working with the script that was originally, say, in Japanese?
We have a little bit of leeway, but usually it's gone through so many people. There's been a writer, and then the producers have to give approval, and you really try to stick to script. The only times that you fudge it a little bit is when it's not really fitting. So, you know, like they've written a line because maybe it was in the manga exactly written that way, but that there's just not enough mouth flaps, or it's just way too long for it to fit, or whatever is happening, and then they sort of have to massage it a little bit and say, okay, add some more words, or, you know, let's cut this out. And that's really when you start making changes. You're not usually just willy-nilly going through the script and going, I'm going to just say this now.
I mean, every now and then, you know, I think as an actor you have to choose your battles where that's concerned. Like sometimes you'll think, I don't know if this is the best way to say it, but clearly it's gone through a bunch of people, you know, who get paid to do that sort of thing, to get it right. And like Tara said, sometimes it doesn't fit, and we'll noodle it in the room with the director. And then occasionally, if I feel, and this doesn't happen with everything, but on the Japanese ones, because I understand some Japanese, once in a blue moon, that I'll feel that the translation is kind of wrong, and not true to the original Japanese. And I'll raise my hand and I'll say, can we try it with just, you know, something else? But that happens rarely. Rarely. Usually it's, we're actors doing a job and we you know, read what's on the script. And that's for when we're dubbing, because it's very technical. When it's like original stuff, if it's in a video game, or, you know, you're creating, you know, a character for the first time in like original animation, there's a little more leeway, because they haven't already done the lip flaps and, you know, said it yet. But you also want to honor all the work that the writer did. So you don't want to just make it all up. Then you get known as one of those trouble actors. So there's a certain amount of leeway.
Right down here in the front.
Well, speaking of the splices earlier, how hard was it to play like the creepy, crazy crawler splicers in Bioshock 2?
That was one of my, playing the crawler splicer in Bioshock 2 was one of my favorite jobs ever. I was such a huge fan of the first game, and I have to say, despite my involvement in the second game, the first game is still so far better than the second game that came out. I haven't played the third yet. I imagine it's brilliant. But I was such a fan that when I kept auditioning for the new game, I'm like, please, you know, and you know, we don't have a lot of power where that's concerned. It's not like I can call somebody up and say, I'm a huge fan of the game, can you cast me? As much as I would like that.
Surprisingly, that doesn't work.
Right? It should be different. So I got the job for one of these splicers, and I'm like, oh, that's, you know, I was so excited. And they said, now we're going to have 2 days of recording because it's so vocally stressful. A lot of these video games are, you know, it's a lot of screaming and getting set on fire and stuff like that.
Especially a game like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's nothing but that. And they said, normally we would do a 4-hour session because we have 4 hours of work, but we'd like to break it into 2 sessions because we don't like to, we're afraid that the actor's going to blow out their voice. So we'd like to schedule you, you know, on Thursday or like on Wednesday, and then again on Friday or something like that to give you some time to rest in between. But I was going out of town, so I could make one of the sessions, but not the other one. And they said, well, we don't think most actors can, we're afraid that they're going to blow their voice out early on, and it's going to be a waste for us. And I convinced them through my agent to let me do it all in one session. And when I walked in, I'd never worked with this director before, and I could tell he was already, he was nervous. But I did the whole session, and was strong through the whole session, and I will tell you why. That despite the fact that it was vocally stressful, I was having so much fun that I think it relaxed my vocal cords enough, and I was, you know, it made me strong enough to, I think that when you're having fun doing something, you will do it better, and you can do it for longer, you know, and I could have done that session forever. Now, the day after that, I was wrecked. As a matter of fact, I was
could not speak.
Yeah, like the week after that, I was probably
I was like, are you ever going to be able to speak again?
But it was totally worth it. I loved it. Because you know, one of the things we love as actors is to get to experience things that we wouldn't normally experience in regular everyday life.
Oh, so you'd like to experience some splicers? That's awesome.
Just to say, you know, I got to spend a day with insanity. Yeah.
So does that happen often, the so-called vocal hangover?
Especially with video games, I'd say. Because there is, it's nonstop. Whereas, you know, with animation, you're doing a scene and there are other characters and things happening in between. Because there are so many lines for you to record in a video game and they have so little time, it's just like an Excel spreadsheet. It's like a list of lines, and you just got to go one after the other.
Usually 3 takes per line.
Yeah. So if they're setting you on fire, you got to do it at least 3 times. And they always save that. They generally save that one for last because they know that it's hard to do anything after you've been screaming.
But
like it's on
sometimes,
fire.
depending on the director or the production, they just want to go by line number, and so you might do like really whispered lines and then screaming bloody murder and then quiet again. You're like, why are we doing it this way? Because it affects your voice to do it that way. It's much easier to do all the just normal speaking sort of dialogue and then move into efforts. But you know, everyone does it differently.
In the red?
Are there any characters you just, like your least favorite, or just someone you don't like voicing or playing as?
So are there some characters we don't like voicing as much as others, or
Yeah.
that we hate?
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, there's something fun about all the characters. I mean, like, I may not like certain characters as a person. Like, I probably wouldn't really want to hang out with Ava from Monster. Like, I don't, she's drunk all the time and kind of crazy. But she's super fun to play. So, I mean, like, I love playing her as a character.
Yeah, there are definitely characters that I have more fun doing than others, but even the ones that I don't have as much fun with, I'm always learning something, and it's, like I said, it's still better than, you know, working at the bank.
No offense if you're a banker.
Yeah.
In the back, in the light blue?
What would you say was the hardest character to bring to life, whether it was dub or just original, that you couldn't get into the character, you just couldn't find it? It took you the hardest amount of time to find.
Hardest character to
What?
find, or
I
get
got
the
fired
character?
off of a show, and I don't even remember what show it was, but they had cast me as like someone's, not someone's mother in the sense like it's like a 20-year-old mother, but like a 50-year-old woman. And I mean, I've got some range, but like it just was not working, and I was doing multiple takes of the character, and I could tell the director was unhappy, and we were just really noodling it and trying to make it work, and it just wasn't hitting because vocally I was really having to press to try to get my voice to do what they wanted and make it still sound natural, because that's just not my natural voice. And then it was just, I wasn't bringing the character to life because I was so focused on all the technical things that we were trying to create with the modulation and the effort sounds and the slightly whispery but also like gravel. Like it was so technical that